When the player, the hero of the story, saves a helpless person in a game, we do not think much of it. After all, it is what we expect from most quests. It is the hero's task to save a village from wild monsters, a town from pirates, a world from destruction. But how do we react when instead it is the antagonist of the story to save that same NPC, to save that town, to save the world? Antiheroes in gaming are often very complex characters. They might not have been saints all of their lives, perhaps they were straight up evil, but they stay true to themselves and will fight for what they believe to be just. The motivation of such a change of heart is different from character to character. Some might be clear, a defined event, but some might be gradual, a long journey towards the unknown. Goro Majima's personal development is definitely one of the latter cases. Majima started off as a generic lunatic punk in the first Yakuza title, but game after game he became more and more complex, eventually becoming a fan favorite. I will not address specific key events that took place in his odyssey, since this is a spoiler-free video, but it is safe to say that there is a good reason why he became a playable character in Yakuza 0 after so many years. But let us take a step back and explore who Goro Majima is, and what makes him, in my opinion, the best anti-hero. First things first, roll the intro. By definition, antiheroes have an ambiguous morality. At times their actions are cruel, at times chaotic, at times cathartic, at times compassionate, and at times incomprehensive. Their actions are always complex to comprehend. No antihero is alike, driven by the same instinct or by the same scope, but they all develop throughout a story in a meaningful way, often more than their counterparts. Tokyo, and more specifically its red light district of Kamurocho, is filled with goons and thugs, outlaws that are themselves the law of this lawless metropolis. When Kiryu, the protagonist of the Yakuza and Like a Dragon franchise, first meets Goro Majima in an alley down Tenkaichi Street, something strange happens. Sure, this Goro fellow looks like any other mobster in town, if anything a psychopathic one, but one that is respected and admired, even by Kiryu himself. At first, he seems to be a villain like many, but there is something peculiar about him, something that makes him distinct from other enemies. For some unspecified reason, Majima is obsessed with Kazuma Kiryu, but not as an assassin. He thinks of himself to be more of a rival, one that is always ready to fight against Kiryu for the pure thrill of the duel. Majima is a villain, one that bursts into madness easily, yet one that respects the protagonist of the story and accepts defeat, even willing to put his own life in the line to save one of his rivals. Goro Majima is a bloodthirsty fighter, one that will go far and beyond to prove a point, to prove himself, but one that follows a code, a conduct that allows him to move within the Tojo clan as a respectable patriarch and not as a rogue ticking bomb. Majima is unpredictable, yet people rely on his help because there is something about the mad dog of Shimano that makes him heroic, even if camouflaged behind an eye patch. So who is Goro Majima? It is complicated to describe Majima's persona. It is a character that has seen great development in every iteration of the series. He started off as a character out of many in the first title, then he became somewhat important in Yakuza 2 and 3, we learn more about him in Yakuza 4 and 5, and then he became the second protagonist of Sega's masterpiece that is Yakuza 0, prequel of the whole franchise. In each game we observe different shades of the same person. But even if the character evolved over time, even eventually becoming playable, the noun that I would use to describe him remains the same across all games. Majima is an anti-hero, and I would go as far as to claim he's the perfect anti-hero in gaming. The word anti-hero is a precise yet quite strange noun, one that is not often used due to its unusualness. It indicates a character that is neither an antagonist nor a villain, even if it may act as one, but one that is not quite as a traditional hero. To be anti-heroic, a character needs to act opposite to a hero, but obtain roughly the same results. The difference lies mainly in the means on how the heroic goals are reached. There is conflict between intent and means, between actions and results. Kiryu is not a traditional hero, but I would not define him as an anti-hero, since his heroic actions and his high morals speak greater volume than his Yakuza background. Majima, on the other hand, is part of the Japanese mafia and acts tough even against his own men. He's ruthless, at times even crazy and sadistic, yet he's not evil in the traditional sense. Given the choice, he's altruistic and acts for the best interest for the people who he cares about. You may think this to be a contradicting behavior, and you would be absolutely right. Majima's actions may appear to be irrational, to be chaotic, but there is greater depth into his psychology, and his motivations are well defined. You see, behind the Hanya mask tattoo lies a person who follows a code of honor, one of a samurai warrior, one that is slightly unorthodox, lost in his insanity, but an honorable soldier nonetheless. Majima is a multi-faced character that demonstrates a myriad of emotions and reactions. At times he's frustrated and angry, at times he's jolly and goofy, at times he's serious and determined. His Hanya mask tattoo is a good allegory of this. In traditional Japanese theater, the demon mask represents a woman who becomes insane for jealousy. While Majima is not jealous per se, like an actor, he switches acts very easily. He will become a demon if necessary, but he remains human beneath the mask. In the games he appears in, Majima assists Kiryu in achieving stability within the Tosho clan, to be a guardian to the chairman and to the organization as a whole. In Yakuza 0, his generosity and altruism is made even more evident with his relation with Makoto, but this is a spoiler-free video, so I'll just say, if you know, you know. In both cases, Majima acts for the greater good, recognizing his place as a Yakuza patriarch, one that can keep stability over organized crime. He's erratic in his means, but efficient in his results. It is debated whether or not the craziness of it all is part of an act, as a disguise, to make sure he can achieve his goals undisturbed. Whether or not it is a play he plays, it is undeniable that the Mad Dog of Shimano embraces his title. No one, not even Kiryu, truly knows, truly understands how Majima thinks, but he does know that, despite it all, despite its lunatic behavior, there is a wise man behind the eye patch, ready to fight for what is just. But how could I talk about Goro Majima without addressing one of his main character traits, his charisma? One element that makes a good antihero is to be amusing, droll, playful, a charisma that allows the character to be easygoing and carefree, one that is not blindly focused on a mission but that intends to entertain himself in life, to live it at its fullest. Majima is a man of action, someone that wishes to be involved in all sorts of situations for the pure amusement. Just like Kiryu, in Yakuza 0, Goro gets himself involved in all sorts of side stories and side quests, helping people with the most absurd of problems. More often than not, it is his curiosity to observe how a specific situation evolves that drives him, like a curious cat that observes and is ready to jump into the action at any time. In the other Yakuza and Like a Dragon games, where he is not the protagonist and not a playable character, we still observe him being involved in all sorts of humorous scenarios. He enjoys his role in this play that is the Japanese underground and exaggerates how much he pleases. It is a strategy to scare off enemies? Perhaps, but I do not believe he is putting on an act. I believe he truly enjoys himself in whatever he is involved in, whether in criminal activities or in generous side stories. Being driven by personal gain and amusement is not quite a heroic trait, true, but it is a key trait of an antihero, one that ends up doing the right thing but following a different philosophy. It is a bit of a Machiavellian trait, the ends justify the means antiheroes have. It is not quite chivalry, but it is a pragmatic approach that at times may lead to antiheroes to take drastic but needed actions. And his chaotic and amusing ways are actually a positive combination. How often do we see good people not trying to do good due to outside blocks? Perhaps they're shy, perhaps nervous, perhaps scared of losing their status. Majima has no such breaks. He will throw himself in all sorts of fights in order to achieve his goals no matter the risk. He might be insane, but his insanity makes him a reliable ally, one that will not back down and will never surrender. Some would call him an overgrown child, one that wants to play rather than to do his work, yet on more than one occasion we observe Majima being extremely serious. For instance, in Yakuza 0's introduction, he is dead set to be the best manager of the Grand Cabaret in Sodenbori Osaka, never allowing his temper to get the best of him even when attending the worst of clients. If anything, being always lighthearted makes his serious moments that much more impactful. The strong contrast of personalities he adopts depending on the situation makes everyone around him careful on how to deal with him. A guard dog can be playful, but it can also bite. And it is with this latter observation that I wish to address the last and perhaps more important characteristic of being an anti-hero, to act once heroically despite it all. If you recall, I started this video by asking what effect would it make if rather than the hero is the villain to a heroic action. What if the bad guy saves an innocent person, spares a foe, sacrifices oneself for a greater cause? We admire heroes because they do the right thing, fight injustice to achieve everyone's well-being, yet this admiration is expected, predictable even. The unconditionality a hero would act heroically is not even impactful. Heroes do heroics all the time, but anti-heroes, that's a different story. To have characters that have suffered and made others suffer through that one act of faith makes such an act that much more meaningful. Majima is a beloved character by Yakuza fans because his actions have that much more weight. He will be cruel to his minions, obnoxious to his rival, harsh to his friends, but when the time comes, when the story needs him the most, Goro Majima will make sure to leave a mark. How many heroic acts does it take to be defined as a hero? Sometimes many, sometimes one. It's about the weight these actions have on the character rather than the actions themselves. Few are the characters that truly confused me when I first met them in games. More often than not, the writers aim to make it very clear who a character is, to etiquette a character as a hero or as a villain. Goro Majima is neither, or both, depending on the point of view, as it takes more than one game to understand him truly and appreciate him fully. Majima would definitely not define himself as a hero, and neither will I attempt to define him as such, but he does, in his own convoluted way, act heroically for the greater good. His path is complex, filled with detours and troubles, but despite his appearance, he does care for others and himself, for the greater good and for his honor. Goro Majima does play a role in this masked theater. He acts as the perfect anti-hero. If you made it this far, I wanted to thank you one too many Majima-san's times for watching today's video. After Kiryu's video, I knew I had to make one for Majima, and after receiving so much positive feedback, I wanted to do it as soon as possible. I truly hope you liked it, and let me know what other characters from the Yakuza games or other titles you would like me to do next. I wish you a wonderful day, and until next time, arrivederci.